think the one cut on the album that we, sitting around the last couple of days listening to the album, Upstairs at My House was the one cut that everybody disagreed on where that was coming from. It was like whether that was actually a house or whether that was in your mind, and upstairs, the view from upstairs at my house.
It's basically the view from upstairs at my house.
Oh,
I have a nice view.
Yeah.
So does Ron, who wrote the music to it. And we live very close to each other, but we have a view of the bay, which has very nice sunsets. Well, it's upstairs in my house. You know, it was going to be originally upstairs on my roof, but I thought that might be a bit close to up on the roof. Yeah, it was one of those songs that was written basically during the recording process or the rehearsal process. The words weren't there, but the music was, and we were sort of hunting around, going through books and just little ideas we had. McKean, our producer, wanted to hear everything we had that was lying around the archives of our books or our heads. And Ron had the music, and his ideas about what it should be about coincided quite closely with mine. And he had this idea about seagulls. That's what he said he is. Seagulls.
Ron really focuses in
on focuses on seagulls. I said, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I got the seagulls grazing in front. He goes, yeah, it's all like that. Yeah. So
it's an exciting song. I mean, it's great. It's like opening your window.
So it's nice and fresh. As far as it's a new song.
Yeah. What did you say, John? It's an exciting song.
Yeah, I find it one of the freshest songs we have. Right? It's like opening your window on top of your house and looking out the window. You get a real.
Yeah, it's very open sort of sounding.
Fresh sort of sea breeze from it. It's great.
Rono uses open chordings in it too, which gives it a very open sound as well.
What do you call it? Open?
I know it's like an open tuning on the guitar. You tune the guitar to a chord. I mean, it's an old. Lots of people do it, but not that many people do it in electric bands.
What kind of keyboards do you use on this?
There's I did have a Prophet in the studio, but I never worked out how to use it, so I didn't use it. I leant on it once and it gave out a strange noise, but no, I had
lost than a Prophet, wasn't it?
more lost than a Prophet. Thank you, John. Thank you.
Sorry, Prophet.
Yeah, so I had a Yamaha CS70, this dual channel synthesizer that I used a bit, which was really nice. Again, a very big sort of sound of that, because it runs, you can actually split the sort of sounds, you get 4 different sounds at the same time.
Jerry, what about the drums? Do you do, as long as we're talking technical studios?
I actually did use some synthesized drums on a couple of tracks, but it was maybe about 20 beats in total. So yeah, you're right. I'm not into using them at all, but maybe I will in the future. I quite like the acoustic sound of drums. Like, I try and play them melodically, and not just sort of bash. So I sort of take a lot of care in the tuning and try and get a good sound acoustically. Synthesized drums, they seem to be used in a pretty cliched way at the moment. Really looking forward to hearing some new things in the future. I'll probably start experimenting with them a bit more now.
What about you, John, as far as the bass is concerned? Was there anything particularly that you did in this album that was...
Well, I used a Music Man all the way through the album, except for one track I used fretless, I think, on the introduction of one song. That was about it. And DI'd the bass most of the sessions, as well as mic'd it. I think we were halfway through a take one day and doing the rhythm sections, we heard this strange noise. And we wondered what it was, because we were all picking it up in the cans in the studio.
Oh, yeah.
And so we had to stop the take sort of, and went out to this back room where my bass amplifier was set up in a little room.
It's right out the back.
And there's these guys in overalls there, Just so happened I was wearing overalls that day, but just by accident,
They were fixing.
I had the white overalls on, they had the blue ones on, sort of. I was forming material that day,
But they were fixing the plumbing, weren't they?
They were fixing the plumbing right beside my amplifier.
Well,
in the middle of a take.
Yeah. They shifted the amplifier and they're going, yeah, just bring that pipe up there, just banging things.
So if you hear any strange noises on the album, it might be a couple of workmen sort of
Really men
bashing
at
away or
work.
something.
That's men at work.
Well,
You mean
oh,
Cricketers
Cricketers
Arms?
Arms.
Yeah. And I ask you if you what would happen now if you guys went back there and played? You said you couldn't go back there.
I can't even walk in there.
Yeah. It's like a whole life change has now occurred. I mean, you know, you guys have been together for a few years, right? Since '78, I guess.
79.
79. But now it's nothing's the same anymore, is it?
Oh, a few things are. The humour element sort of is to a degree. You know, my friends especially, I walk in after a 5-month tour and I open the door and the guy I share a flat goes, "Ladies and gentlemen, most popular man in the world." Which I reckon is pretty funny.
There's a certain sadness in the life change, is what I'm thinking about.
Sadness.
There is, I think there is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a melancholia, I think. Yeah, because if you drive past something like the Cricketers Arms, you sort of, you don't think about it except for sometimes you look at it and you remember that. Well, I remember that I spent nearly 4 years every week there playing. And it would be impossible for me to just walk in there, even not even to play, but just to go into that hotel. I would never
Probably sit down and start
Would
singing.
never go in there,
Yeah.
So that is kind of an area that is basically sort of that's over now. You don't worry about it very much, but there is a certain element of sadness to it.
What do you
It's basically the underdog situation too, of you having really no expectations and you just there is always that you haven't arrived anywhere. You're going through the motions, of trying to do whatever it is you're doing.
as you were when you were playing there, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And things go in stages, and you attain some level of success, and then the success grows, and just keeps on going, keeps on having a snowball effect. And have you appeared on television a lot there? Are you notarized in Australia or in Melbourne? oh, people know who we are.
The whole thing of being recognised too. I mean, I think Colin's tends to be more recognised than anyone because, I mean, there's probably more photographs. He's just more a focus of the group. But I mean, everybody tends to get recognised. But then you'll go to places where people just don't expect you to be. And I've seen it. Or they look at you and they go, "Is that a guy? Nah, what would he be doing sitting here having a greasy meal in this thing?" And they just ignore the fact that they just don't believe it could be you. Whereas if you're wearing stuff that makes people think, "Gee, why is he wearing that weird stuff? I wonder who he is," And then they take their second look and they might recognise you. And sometimes people take exception to the idea. There's a certain side of Australian humour which is
Which is
Colin
pretty
gets people, yelling out from cars, "Hey buddy, write us a cheque for $1 million, will you?"
funny. When you arrive back, people immediately have become your friend. A first name basis. You pull up at the lights in the car, and someone will just lean across and they go, "Hey, Cole, when you get back?" You always feel like saying, "Oh, sorry I didn't ring you up and tell you, mate. Should have given you a call and said, look, I'm going to be arriving back at such and such, and then there'll just be a pause for a minute and they'll say, yeah, doing well. Good car. You going to the races?" And then you're off, Just
Yeah.
little things like that would never have happened before.
What about people that are closest to you? Family, friends that you live with?
It depends on who they are. I think,
Yeah.
It's made my father very proud.
He
He
used
used
to
to say to
John-
me, "Why don't, when are you going to get a proper job?"
Yeah.
This sort of thing. And I wasn't allowed to play my drums when he was at home. Like I could play them when Mum was there, but as soon as Dad came home, I had to stop playing. And there was a situation where I'd be in a band and friends would come around to pick me up to go for a practice, and my father would go out and say, "Jerry's not coming today. He's got better things to do with his time." He wanted me to stay inside and study, and I'd be inside crying my eyes out. So this sort of thing. This is when I was a young teenager.
19. Bawling his eyes out at 19.
And the other day I went with my father to see his solicitor, and we were talking, and
His life.
I told him
And you
about
signed away everything.
I told him about the world tour that we're going to start in April. And he said, well, I don't suppose you'll be thinking about me when you're over there. You know, I'll be stuck here in the four walls, doing my job here. And my father said to him, well, you're in the wrong profession.
How about you, John? Did your folks want you to do something particular or be something particular?
They always sort of said they regretted buying me a bass guitar at one stage. Because I was sort of brought up a classical musician, started the piano and then learned the violin and did a music course in the violin and started playing rock and roll at the same time, so a bit of a conflict of interests, and so they didn't like the idea of me trying to make a living playing music.
What would they rather have you done?
Well, be a music teacher or something like that, you know.
Something legitimate, you know.
With a bit of paper, you know, like
something safe.
The song "It's a Mistake" seems like a very heavy anti-protest, or a very protest.
Well, it's more. The way I look at it is, it's more the ultimate joke. You know, that's what it is. It's although no one's laughing except maybe some people up there who are watching us, going, "Look at these clowns down there. You know, they're going to blow it." You know, and it's just like basically for me is, you know, it's you know, it's the last joke that anyone would play on anyone. You know,
Yeah.
it is the ultimate absurdity in life. You know, that's what I think.
Dr. Heckle and Mr. Jive is a real fun song on if you look at it one way, but then on the other way, it's a pretty heavy statement too.
It's not so much heavy as just sort of having a bit of a laugh at yourself, or
the human factor.
Yeah.
The schizophrenic in all of us. I don't see that. I mean, I don't see that song as being heavy in any way. Actually, it's got a real sort of kind of gentleness about it.
It's like the ultimate. You know, when you go through school, you meet them all the time. It's someone who you know has got, you know, his heart's in the right place, but you know he's going to be a loser. You know, he's going to lose. He's going to, you know, he's got sort of ultimate belief that it keeps on getting sort of trodden on all the way through. You know, it's like when you're at school, you can tell who's going to be a real estate agent. But also
Socially inept.
Yeah, it's a cross between. And also he's concerned, you know, but it's like a cross between a nutty professor and you know, and Jekyll and Hyde, you know, sort of somewhere in between there, you know. It's like plagiarisation of all of them.
There you are, folks. He admitted it.
There is. It was overkill. It's like that song was. I related to it on that level more than anything.
Yeah, well, it can happen on the road or at home. There's no real. It doesn't really matter where it is. It's just. It is basically just that feeling of knowing that you should sleep because you need sleep, but your head keeps churning over, you know, and just as you get to sleep at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're just going into that whole sort of lovely sort of dream world at about 9 or 10, and you get a phone call, you know, that sort of we have to be somewhere, so you're sleeping at, you know, at all the wrong times, you know, and you're sort of nothing's really quite normal, you know. But it's also that sort of thing of being really aware of you know, organs in your body, you know, like your heart,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and your spleen and sort of really
Precious bodily fluids.
Yes, your precious bodily fluids. Yes. Yeah, well, it's just it's quite a lonely sort of tune, really.
And that can happen at home or on the road, but I don't think on the road.
Anyway. I mean, I think a lot of people must get. I mean, this is the, you know, that's why Valium's so big, I suppose.
I mean, I found after the last tour that we did, my sleeping habits were really strange. You know, when I got back to Melbourne, you know, I'd go to bed, I'd be so tired, I'd go to bed at 11 o'clock, and then I'd wake at 4 in the morning. And my heart would be racing, you know, and I'd be heading towards the suitcase, you know, and panicking, you know, and bells are going off in my head, and I'm like, wait a minute, you know.
Where's that room?
And it took me a couple of weeks to get sort of kind of back to normal. Falling asleep in the middle of the day, you know, at odd hours and in odd situations.
Greg's lately become a
of doing that on the road. He just, you know, I mean, we'll go, if you go visit someone, Ron might just sort of curl up in the corner and go to sleep.
Go to sleep for a couple of hours, yeah.
While everyone else is having teas.
You're sort of you've sort of eased into the cut high wire all of a sudden with waking up with Jen and can you give me some thoughts about High Wire, about that song, that particular song?
Old song, that one.
Mm-hmm.
An old song.
Had to keep it artificial resuscitation.
I can't remember actually. I can't remember really. It's so old now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's about sort of basically, you know, basically having wall-to-wall guttering in your where you live. We're trying to put that in, you know, sort of so that you feel at home no matter where you are.
Right. But living always on the high wire, which means a dangerous place to be, I would think.
Right, yeah, it is a bit of an edgy song. It's got an edgy quality to it.
Yeah.
It's sort of...
Alcohol's one of those particular drugs.
Keeps on coming back. There are no alcoholics in this band.
But it's one of those drugs that kind of where you do things that really isn't in isn't in your personality almost, or if it is, it goes way back. You know? And people will say you did a certain thing and you don't, you know, you just don't believe it. You know, like sort of you know, breaking a door down to get in, or sort of, which is something that you would never ever think of doing. You know, I can think
something you've never done, though.
I think something I've never done. No.
Right, that's just clear.
A couple of people we know have.
Yeah, right.
Who, you know, who are the sweetest, you know, people, you know, and you know, they get drunk and it's like you come home and they've destroyed your house, you know. But it's just about that. Yeah, it's just a sort of song, High Wire. It's a sort of a fitted in.
And when you're on an airplane, the stewardesses sometimes mistake the roadies for the band. And
Yeah,
sure.
It's true. That is really
so
true.
Serious. I brought out that serious side. Is there also?
It's a middle classness too of actually not really wanting to get on a plane and, you know, you want to sit there and you're nice to the hostesses and it's things like that. Whereas the sort of hostess goes past, one of the road crew will probably get them in a headlock to get their attention. You know?
Yeah, right. Order 3 or 4 bourbons. And
3 or 4 bourbons and they
Before
go,
you've
hey,
taken
what are
off.
you doing later on? And
Yeah.
things we sort of,
they got their Walkmans turned up full blast.
full
you know.
blast with sunglasses on, and they're also playing cards, you know, like doing everything at once.
And they think, and so the stewardesses, that's men at work right
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, well, they're wearing Men at Work t-shirts,
Yeah,
you know,
that's-
seems to
yeah,
make
yeah.
sense.
Yes, and we're their
Meanwhile-
accountants.
Yeah, you're
Something,
the
you know,
guys.
sort of sitting reading books going,
That's right.
So
Time
there's,
magazine.
so there's the zany fun side, and there's the
hey,
serious
zany, we're
side.
just a zany bunch of guys.
Well, zany's maybe not a very good word.
In Australia, I mean, I know that we were all schooled on that, a very English brand of humour, which was very, you know, it's very Peter Cook and Dudley Moore. It was very Monty Python, that whole sort of
Cleese
thing.
and all that.
Cleese, all through the, you know, late 60s and the 70s, even when you went to school when you were young, you were always getting probably the best humour there was to offer in the whole world, as far as we were concerned. You know,
Hey.
that, you know, that really
Yeah.
that really rubs off, you know, and you adopt that sort of thing of it's basically an aware of it's basically an aware of awareness of it's basically awareness of you know, things that are seeing the absurd things in a situation, you know, like whilst being at the Grammys was a great experience, it still had this really kind of absurd quality to it. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing here? You know, we don't belong here, but we do at the same time.
As
You know,
much
so
as
it's-
anybody.
It's always got a double perspective to it. You know, of not belonging. But yeah, we've been nominated. Yeah, sure. Why not go over there? That'll be great. You know, but it always has a quality to it which you can't quite define.
There's a certain attitude in a lot of your songs too about take the song No Restrictions against authority. Being
No restrictions. I mean, no restrictions for me is like a song. You know, it's awful when bands write about being on the road because it's really dull. You know, I mean, I'm on the road again, and like, it's really awful. But I mean, that song for me was very much a being on the road sort of situation. You see, because it's like, it's a very sort of freeway kind of thing, and also. But in Australia, the first tours we were doing were like, you know, the hotel rooms where you turn on the television and how you would relax is watch the cricket, you know. And Dennis Lilly was meditative, you know. That's how you basically, a lot of us would relax and we'd get off on that, you know. It was like, you know, it had a sort of some sort of even religious quality to it, you know, watching the cricket, you know. And then you'd head off, you'd be away again, you know. But the first verses, I don't know, every time I sort of think about it, as alcohol's always sort of He's always involved there somewhere. That stumbling home, you know, like even in Canada, you find yourself, you know, I was standing in the middle of, where was it, Montreal or Toronto. I'd been to some sort of place because all the pubs have closed, the hotels, and you go to a speakeasy and it's like darkness, and you walk through a room and then you walk through another room, and all of a sudden there's this huge party going on, you know, with about 100 people in it, you know, and you stay there till 6 o'clock in the morning and then walk outside and standing in the middle of the street, and you haven't got a clue not only where you are, what city you're in, but what hotel you're staying in, and you're just looking for a cabin. It's freezing cold, you know, that sort of thing of, oh, look, I just wish I was at home in bed, warm, you know. And then you get in the cabin and it goes, where are you going? You go, there's a hotel, oh God. And he's got to run.
Is there a
through
Four
it.
Seasons
Is
in
there
this
a Four
town?
Seasons? And even when you try and say it, you know, it's like, Four Seasons? Huh?
No restrictions. That kind of an entropy feeling then you're talking about, where you have nothing around.
It's a sense of movement, though. It's just a kind of a movement, you know, of the fact that you're always moving and, you know, from one place to another. You know.
Well, you interpret it though. Every musician has an interpretation of that song in their own way. When you think on every one of those songs, even if you write it or you don't write it, you're presenting it, and in some ways that's as artful as a work of art to me as always seems to me to take somebody else's song and interpret that song is an art in its own self.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, because it's usually, I mean, I think most bands usually work from no, we do. I mean, it kind of work from a musical standpoint, especially if you're rehearsing a song. You know, very rarely does anyone say, what's this song about?
Yeah.
You know, what are we trying to convey here, like in terms of a lyrical sense, which, you know, is quite important. Again, whilst you don't really explain a song to an audience, you know, if you write the lyrics or to a song, very rarely do you explain it to the other people in the band, because it's not really, it's not really much point, you know.
Yeah.
Because Blue for You really is not really kind of, what it's about is not really what you imagine it to be about. Hey.
Go ahead.
No, that's it. That's it, you know.
Do you have a favorite cut, John, on the album? Is there one particular line that you like?
I keep changing from one song to another. I think Overkill's one of my favourites. It's a good song.
Do you have a particular reason why?
I just sort of I like the melody and the feel of the whole song. It's got a really good it's got some good moments of harmonic shifts in it.
Any other cuts on there that you particularly like?
Upstairs is one of my favourites too. I like the excitement of it and the sort of it's a real growth for the band, that song. It feels like a real strong sort of character there, you know. It feels really strong and driving, you know. It's got a real progression to it.
Oh, but you guys really maintain rock and roll on this album. It's to me, it's more rock and roll than the last album was.
Stronger rhythms and stronger sort of stronger playing.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Character.
You know, sort of rock and roll, I suppose you have to sort of define it in a way, but it's more, it's got more kind of drive to it, I think.
Yeah, it's heavier in the feel to me overall.
It feels freer, yeah, too. The guitars are freer on this album, I think, too. A lot more,
We had so much trouble doing the rhythm tracks for this album because the studio we used in Melbourne, like, there'd been so many bands in there and everything kept breaking down. But so there was quite a level of paranoia as far as, let's get this rhythm track done before something else breaks down, and we have to stop for a day. And every time we'd sort of do a track and we think, yeah, that's really good, that's the one, you know. And then something would break down, and that happened about 5 times where we got the rhythm track down just before something broke down, you know, which was very fortunate.
There was one cut, I think it was I'd Like To, that has that Sparks kind of feel, like, you know.
It's because of Frantic, sort of quality.
Yeah.
That's Ron's sort of strange eating habits.
Yeah.
Yeah, Like To. So Ron has good, you know, I think he's going to start a toasted sandwich shop. I think he's got that thing in his mind of having a toasted sandwich shop, you know, as a hobby, or as a, you know, go into maybe when the band's over. Ron will start his own toasted sandwich shop. He doesn't want to work there. He just wants to go there and have nice toasted sandwiches that he really likes.
That's what I'd like.
I think he'd be his own best customer, I think, really.
Greg, do you have a particular cut on there that you?
I'd like to. I think that's. I had a lot of fun trying to sing that. And, it's just it's so typically Ron. You know, in Ron saying, I like to do this, you know, I like to sit in a bathtub. I can just imagine him sitting in a bathtub watching the water going down the drain, you know,
It goes the other way.
watching which way it goes, yeah.
That's
So,
really interesting that you say that, because that's one track where when we were mixing it, like we had an interview or we did Solid Gold or something in the morning, and I came back in the afternoon, and Peter had started mixing it, and I come in and he goes, have a listen to this, we're real close, we're really close now. So he played it, and I listened to it, and he goes, what do you think? And I said, I think you got a long way to go yet. And his face dropped, you know, because it was one of the last tracks we were doing, and it had been a pretty laborious sort of mix session, like as amount of hours goes, and just physical tiredness and that. So he was sort of looking forward to getting it over with. And I said it had a long way to go, and the thing of it was that he didn't have that sort of live dynamics in it, you know, like in the instrumental piece towards the end. Greg does these sort of surges.
Colin, can you answer the question about about a favorite cut as much as you're involved in the writing and all this?
I like Upstairs. I mean, I like a lot of the songs. I like Upstairs in My House because it was a real fresh song, and every time I listen to it, it sounds like it's just been written. You know, it sounds like it's very new, and it also just reminds me of whenever I hear it, no matter where I am, it always reminds me of my friends, you know, and where I live, which is good. If you know, I play it, and I immediately sort of, you know, travel back there. You know, but I just like it. Also, I got to play the solo on it, you know. So.
The guitar solo on it.
Yeah, I don't get to play many of them, but I actually did 2 on this record. I only did 1 on the first one, so people sort of said get really surprised, you know, about that.
Well, that's a real heavy. There's a degree there that comes from playing the guitar and then playing lead guitars,
But also,
playing another instrument.
But just being a singer too, people always imagine still sort of you're the singer and you knock out a few chords, and Ronno plays all that. I mean, Ronno does play a lot more sort of lead work than I do, but I love to at least get a chance on a record to play single note things, you know. I really enjoyed. It was very, very difficult singing on this record because we took ages to get a good. The first record took an hour to get a vocal sound, and then it all went down. But this one it was a very frustrating experience, you know. For 2 or 3 days we were trying to get a good vocal sound because we kept on getting distortion and things. We couldn't work out why. But once we actually got happening, I really thoroughly enjoyed singing the songs on the album and just kind of trying out different harmonies and all the ideas. It was really exciting for me to do that, you know, just to let go, you know, just to really let go and you know, again, vocally it's like an extension from the first album. I did things on the second one that I learned from the first one, you know.